So Pogchamps 2 continue today, and this is quite possibly the best match I've ever seen in a game of chess. Basically, mizkif was supposed to go against AustinShow, but last minute something happened, and instead Connoreats replaced mizkif. Now Connoreats did not train to replace mizkif, so he maybe got 30 minutes, maybe an hour of training before the match, but that's all. And so this was such a blunder-filled game, and that makes it so fun to watch because you can literally blunder a queen and still be in the game, as this game shows. And so it's just so fun, and it's nice to every once in a while in a very serious tournament to get one of these more stress-free games, which is what happened today. So AustinShow started with the black pieces in the first game, and Connoreats started with the readies opening, which is actually a very fine opening. And you can tell already from the start how much training both players had. It was just incredible. Okay, so with the move g3, you tend to put your bishop on g2. It's a great idea to think out of the bishop, but instead Connoreats put the bishop on h3, which is okay if there isn't a bishop that can take it, which is exactly what happened. So already from the start, the blundering of a piece, but trust me, that does not mean a lot in this game. Knight moves over here to h4, and just the game continues with normal moves. I mean, somewhat normal moves. And you'll notice that both players made some sort of mistake. In the start, this bishop came here, which blocked the e-pawn, and now this bishop came here, which again blocks the e-pawn, which is nothing. Well, it's something that you never really want to do. You never want to block a pawn with a bishop, because then you're going to have to move the bishop, which is what happened here. Luckily, AustinShow managed to move the bishop and take a piece with it, but this bishop is kind of annoying for the rest of the game, or for the time being. Here, it seems like a free pawn until you realize that the bishop can also go backwards, but AustinShow did not realize that and instead took some more times moving the rook over, a couple more times in the game. And this is a very nice position for the knight, always threatening a fork between the king and the rook if the queen were ever to move, which is actually what ended up happening in a couple of moves. So the knight comes here, takes the pawn, where it can be taken by not one, not two, not three, not four, but 5 pieces. I don't think I've ever seen this in a chess game. This is like the wooden shield, as xqcow would say. It's just incredible, and the bishop decides to take it, which is completely fine. And here the pawn continues to move forward. If you haven't noticed, so far every move that white has made has been advancing. Maybe white does not even realize that the pieces can also go backwards, because so far there's no sign of that. And also black, same for black. None of the moves have been going back, and that just continues. It's just such a fun match. The bishop can obviously take, but again, maybe AustinShow does not realize that. And finally, the first backwards move of the game. It's not a horrible move. It does block in the rook, so the rook can be taken for free. But the idea is maybe to unleash the e-pawn, which is a good idea. But once again, you're losing a rook if AustinShow finds it, which he doesn't. And just more pawns being pushed forward. And finally, like I talked about the queen moves, it still protects this square, so the fork is still not possible. But now the fork is. Notice that the bishop is getting hit, but there's just such an incredible move here, forking not only the king and the rook, but also the queen, potentially winning the queen, but instead AustinShow does not see it and plays queen over here to c7. The bishop falls. Once again, you can now get away with the fork because, again, the queen is no longer here. You're not going to win the queen, but you're still going to get some material. But again, AustinShow doesn't show any signs that he realizes that pieces can go also backwards, because he hasn't played one of those moves yet. So it's just super funny. This is a great moment not to take the pawn, which is exactly what happened. So a very good move not to take the pawn. But unfortunately, the bishop comes right back here. Maybe you wanted to keep this open, but I mean, apparently not. The bishop moves and the rook moves, and there's just some more blank moves. Not really showing any distinct attacking plans, but just playing some moves that are okay. This it seems very, very good because if the queen takes, there's this fork here winning the queen, but that doesn't work because this time this comes with check, so black cannot fork the queen But regardless, I doubt that AustinShow even realized that this is his plan all along. The king moves here, I believe, and now the best move of the game. It's just so fantastic. I wish that I could play like these players. Queen all the way to e8 check. Look at that beauty. The idea is if the king takes, there's a mate in 3. I'm completely joking. This is just a horrible blunder. But don't worry, the game is not over yet, as this game shows. So the queen coming here, and maybe the idea was to get the king in a very confined area where it can't move because of the queen. But the problem with that is the queen was not supported. So it's an okay idea, but next time support the queen. Here, the knight attempting maybe to win the queen back, and AustinShow does not see it, and the queen falls for black with check. And instead of the bishop taking the free knight, once again, not really showing signs that he knows that pieces can go back, he moves the king. And this is actually not the best move because it probably will show, AustinShow that he needs to move this bishop. It's probably like, oh, the bishop's attacked. Let me see where it can move. Oh, it can take the knight. So that's why this move, it's not a wonderful move because it might motivate AustinShow to take the knight. But it doesn't. And this is probably the worst time to do this fork because if the king moves here, you now have 2 pieces that are being attacked. So even if you win the rook, you're getting a bishop for it, and now this rook or this knight here is well, not trapped, but it is very confined. So you might win the knight too. So it's actually probably not a great place. But the king moves here regardless, and now the bishop takes the knight here. The first backwards move, I believe, unless you count the king moving here back. Well, it's not really backwards; it's more sideways. But this is just such a fantastic game. I really don't have much more to say. It's just so incredible. The knight falls, and the pawn continues being pushed forward, trying to promote maybe. But the rook takes it. Instead of taking it with the rook, you take the pawn here, making this bishop fall and also this rook. Connoreats takes the rooks, then takes the bishop, and mates the next move. Wonderful first game. Super, super fantastic. Losing a queen, relatively early on, and then winning a queen back a couple moves later. It's just such a fantastic game. Let's move on to match 2 to see if AustinShow can actually tie the game. AustinShow starts with the white pieces in match 2, and if he wins this, remember there will be a tiebreaker to decide who goes on. And before I forget, I did want to mention that if you want more updates for all of the future matches in Pogchamps 2, make sure you subscribe because I will try to get a video for every match in the future. And here you notice that already from the start, AustinShow blunders a pawn, and Connoreats actually finds this move, which is very impressive. And now attacking the bishop. Let's see if Connoreats realizes that his bishop is being attacked. It is defended for right now, but one of the worst moves in the position, moving the knight, taking away the defender, and not moving out the bishop. So the bishop is taken. The pawn here, and this is a consistent theme in this game, using, I guess, what's called a decoy, but it's not really a decoy, more of just a lure. Basically, you play this move, hoping that the rook will take, which is what happened, so the knight can go and take. This is just really fun to see, because there's no chance that this would work in any other level of chess, but, this is very much possible in beginner games, and you'll notice that this happens more in the future as well. Same thing that happened last time. The bishop just comes in, swoops the bishop on a6. So Connoreats does not learn that the bishop here is not defended unless you push out the pawn first. And just normal developing happening. You'll notice once again players tend to stay back from moving pieces backwards. So for example here, rather than moving the knight backwards, you defend the knight. Obviously this is a huge blunder, but I wouldn't be surprised if the knight would have jumped maybe to here or here, just not noticing pawns that can take it, because you don't realize that the knight, you don't want to move a piece back. It looks like you're surrendering, which you're completely not. It's a very important idea to understand. Don't be afraid to move pieces back, but already Connoreats has a pretty big advantage as the rooks get activated in a very strange way for both players. But I mean, it is okay. It is a way to get a rook activated, I guess, which is a benefit. Here a pawn is blundered, and then the knight moves to a spot where the knight is blundered. So material, I don't believe it's equal, but it is very close. And then both players are, fine here. Now AustinShow tries to get away with a check, not realizing that the queen can take. And this is what I mean by another lure. The pawn moves here, luring the knight to take it is just so funny. And I believe, I watched this live actually, at this moment Connoreats said something along the lines of like, you fell for my trap. So he actually had this in mind with the knight coming and the queen taking. So it's really funny to see. And maybe it's something you can implement in your own game if you're more of a beginner, more of a beginner player. The queen comes here, takes the bishop, something that actually happened in the last match too, and now the queen is blundered, and from here it just continues going downhill from AustinShow. So, or for AustinShow. And this is actually one of the best moves in the position. Threatening mate, threatening just attacks like the bishop. It's just a very powerful move. There was mate, I believe, in this position, but instead the bishop is taken, which is fine, because when you're up material, you don't really need to stress too much on finding the best mate. It's still good practice to try to find it, but you don't actually have to. Now, in this position, how long do you think it will take Connoreats to mate this white king? Leave it down below before you watch this video. I already know the answer, so I'm not going to give you my guess, but make sure you leave it down below, because I'm interested to see how much hope you have in Connoreats. So let's see what happens. It actually takes a long time. Connoreats tried to get away with the ladder, which he actually was taught before the game, but the problem here is obviously the king can take. So this is a good move, and I was actually surprised that this move was not played anyways, but actually, a fine move, kicking the king back. And this time the king moves here, although it wouldn't matter because the queen is supporting the square. So it really doesn't matter. Mate in one, and that's how both of the games ended in incredible fashion. So many blunders, but that's what makes chess fun when when you look at beginner gameplay. So this is the game for this. Well, this is the second game in the match. Make sure you subscribe if you want more of the matches that are coming. There's 2 more matches today, so stay tuned and peace out.